Yo kijkers, tof jullie kijken naar een gloednieuwe video. Vandaag reageren we op deze video over Nederlandse taal in het Engels. Wat soms raar kan zijn. Hij moet even denken.
You know what I have always found really strange is when it comes to Australian animals in the Dutch language, they're not like super creative. Obviously, things like
Klopt.
kangaroo is kangaroo,
Ja.
koala is koala,
Koala.
wallaby is wallaby. And then all of a
What's a
sudden
wallaby?
you get to platypus. And I
Yeah.
remember asking my partner, Yessa, what is platypus? How do we say platypus in Dutch? I don't know why it was in the conversation, but it was. And neither of us knew. I obviously didn't know, and we Google translated it. Google Translate tells us that it's vogelbekdier,
Klopt.
which blew my mind because it's so literal. But also, why would you choose a platypus to all of a sudden change the name of an animal? So it got me thinking about some of these really literal translations and how specific Dutch can be, and some of the weird words that they have to describe things and the weird sayings and what they actually sound like in English. So I wanted to give you a list of some of the...
Ja. Vroeger was het trouwens, als ik naar mijn camera keek, of naar mijn beeld keek, dan keek ik recht in mijn camera. Nu staat mijn camera hier. Dus als ik juist naar mijn opname kijk, kijk ik helemaal daarheen. En als ik naar de video kijk, kijk ik hieruit. Want ik heb een nieuw beeldscherm. Dus daarom. En die heeft geen built-in mic.
funny words that I find and I come across in Dutch when the translations just sound so odd as an English speaker. And hopefully you can use it to pick up some weird vocab and remember some of these words a little easier. And I want to hear from you guys, what are some weird sayings and things that just sound so ridiculous when you actually translate them into Dutch? Leave them in the comments because I'd love to read through them, and we will get into the video. So the first one I want to get to on the list is klokhuis. When you are learning Dutch vocabulary, clock and house, they sound basically the same in English. So I feel like when I first was hearing this word, I would think, you know, like a clock tower or like a grandfather clock, like one of those clocks that stand in the hallways in old houses. Klokhuis is actually the name for an apple core. So this is super weird, and I guess when you translate it into English, or what like the meaning is, it kind of makes it sound so strange, but also just that really classic characteristic of Dutch of describing something exactly how it looks, just like vogelbekdier and how an apple core takes on the shape of a clockhouse. So that is my number one weird word. More weird translations in Dutch is pindakaas. And pindakaas, pinda is...
Deze heeft te maken met wetten. Toen pindakaas was uitgevonden, hadden wij al regels wanneer iets boter is. Dus daarom mag het geen boter zijn. En in sommige landen was pindakaas echt een soort hard blok waar je plakjes van afsneed. Maar omdat volgens mij zeg maar wat Duitsers met bier hebben, dat reinheidsgebod, hadden wij een beetje al met boter. Dat er bepaalde dingen in mogen zitten en pinda's vallen daar niet onder. Dus peanut butter, pindaboter mag niet, maar pindakaas wel. Zo zit dat met pindakaas.
Peanut and kaas is kaas, and you learn that super early on when you're learning Dutch. So together they actually translate to peanut cheese. It's not peanut cheese, it's peanut butter. So pindakaas is peanut butter. Another one of my favorites is patatje oorlog.
Ja, dat
patatje
is wel
oorlog
raar.
is a combination of satay sauce, so like peanut sauce and mayonnaise and raw onions on top of chips. This is like my ultimate favorite combination to get from the snack bar. I love patatje oorlog, and I miss it that we don't have it here. But when you translate it, oorlog actually means war. So it's almost like you've named this flavor over like the battle between like choosing between satay sauce and mayonnaise, and why don't we have both and just order
Misschien is dat ook wel gewoon
Keeping with the theme of food, we have a capsulon. Capsulon is like a head.
Dit weet ik ook, een hairdresser is het. Dit weet ik ook waarom dit zo is. Omdat de gast die dit als eerste bedacht had, die werkte in een kapsalon. Dus de kapsalon moest altijd naar de kapsalon. En daardoor gingen mensen zeggen, oh doe mij dat ook maar. Dus toen werd het kapsalon. Goeie info.
Salon. So like a hairdresser. That's what it's probably most known as. But it's also a food that you can order. Again, from the snack bar, you have chips and then you basically have like this deconstructed shawarma on top of it. So you've got like the shavings of meat and then a bit of salad, some garlic sauce, cheese, all of those things. And again, amazingly delicious. But the confusion between calling it a capsulon and it actually being something that you can order is just a weird translation, a weird use of the word. I don't know how the two crossed over. If anyone knows the history of that, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know why a capsulon is called capsulon. I remember a few years ago when I was celebrating New Year's in the Netherlands and I was telling my mum, this is what we're doing, and oliebollen, and that's what you eat. And then I had to obviously translate oliebollen into English because I was having an English conversation with my mum. And then I was like, ew, oil balls. It's such a weird translation and it does not sound delicious. And they are delicious. You obviously cook the dough in, it's deep fried dough in oil. So I guess it makes sense. But to say like, oh, we were eating oil balls just sounds strange, and it's another weird translation from the Dutch language. Another funny literal word for things is handschoenen, means gloves. So when you take these words apart, you know that hand is hand and schoenen is shoe for your feet. So in Dutch, they combine these two very little words to make hand shoes, which refers to gloves. Now, something you might hear often when you are learning the Dutch language is the term ezelbruggetje of ezelbrug. This is like when you have mnemonics or like a way of remembering something very easily. So you might have a Dutch teacher that uses this term, but it's kind of like making your own links between the two languages. When you translate ezelbrug of ezelbruggetje, it actually means a donkey's bridge. So when I was looking up the story as to why this became a popular term, I was reading a blog post and someone had said that donkeys are historically scared of water. So to try and get the donkeys who were carrying all of the cargo and things back then to cross across the canals, you would have to make these temporary bridges and small sort of like rickety ways to get from one place to another. So that was kind of where the term became popularized, in getting your brain to go from one place to another by making this kind of makeshift link between the two. So once a donkey finds its way across, it will never forget. So going more into some sayings that sound quite funny when you translate them into English is the monkey comes out of the sleeve. So this in English, we have this like similar sort of concept, who let the cat out of the bag. And I guess that would sound quite strange to a lot of non-English speakers, but when you translate these sayings back into your own language, they just sound so odd. And I have used this in Dutch. This is something that I've said in Dutch, and it's also something that I've heard in Dutch. And I don't think twice when I'm using the Dutch language, but when you like pull these things out of the Dutch language and put them into your own, they just don't make sense anymore, or they sound really strange and like they don't belong. If someone ever says to you in Dutch that you have iets onder de knie, so you've got something under the knee, it means that you understand it really well, or you're an expert in that field, or that you've really understood the concept, or you just get it, you've mastered it. So I believe the first way of using this expression was when you had dominated someone in a fight, and the expression kind of slowly changed to really coming out on top and being a master of what you had just learnt. So another one that I've heard the Dutch use is met de deur in huis gevallen. So this translates to fall with the door in the house. This is a saying that is describing to get straight to the point. So you don't kind of like wander in and hang up your coat or knock on the door. You literally just barge through with the door and you get straight to the point. The next one is talking about little cows and little calves. This in Dutch is said as praten over koetjes en kalfjes, which basically means you're not chatting about anything important. You're kind of just talking about nothing, or nothing in particular, or nothing that's interesting also. Now, one I actually hear quite often is that you can't make any chocolate from it. And again, this sounds so strange when you translate it into English, but daar kan ik geen chocolade van maken. It essentially means that you are indicating that you can't really make any sense of what's going on, or that you're not really understanding what is happening. We have a saying like this in English when people say it's all Greek to me. So like, you just don't get what's going on. And in Dutch, they say, I can't make any chocolate from that. Now, there were so many examples and so many blogs that have been written by expats, and so many examples where I just thought, yeah, that just sounds so funny in English. And I will leave some of the links down below. There was one blog that was fantastically illustrated, and they actually did like a literal translation by drawing what the words mean. So check out the description box. Again, if you have any like weird translations, animals are usually super strange in Dutch. They're super literal, like the schildpad, so like a shield toad, which obviously means a turtle. So let me know some of these funny translations in the comments. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Like de video, reageer, abonneer, zeg ik tot later. Doei.